thank you so much for attending our presentation on developmental educators and the graduate careers pathway that are available at Everyday Independence. Before we start, if you do have any questions that you would like us to answer, please put them into the Q&A function. We'll have some time at the end to go through any questions or to unpack anything that anyone wants to discuss further. Before we kick off, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which our sites are held and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, thanking Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders for their continued connection to land, waters and community, and acknowledging the important role they play within our communities. And I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm meeting on Dja Dja Wurrung land today. So we've just got a bit of a blank screen there, CJ. But before we kick off, we at Everyday Independence, we always talk about why we're here. So we always discuss and talk about what are we actually here to do. And at Everyday Independence, we strive every day to lead and support individuals, their families, communities, and our nation to become a global leader for inclusion. And I think that is particularly important for our presentation today, because we believe the role of the developmental educator is critical in supporting and promoting inclusion across the country. So we just want to introduce the panel and do some quicker introductions. My name is Harley. I'm the General Manager for Service Delivery. I've been at Everyday Independence for 7 years now. I'm an occupational therapist and behaviour support practitioner. I started as a student and I've just never left. And we're really lucky to have Jade and Lisa here today who have expertise in the Developmental Educator program. So Jade, do you want to do a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jade. I'm the speech pathology clinical lead here at Everyday Independence. And I, like Harley, have also never left. I've been around for about 9 years. And I'm also currently completing my master's in autism at Griffith University. So I'll be eligible for the Developmental Educator membership once I'm done with that.
And I'm Lisa. I'm a speechy and team leader at EI, and I'm the newest one here. I started at the start of the year. And I guess kind of the reason I'm here is that I developed a couple of the topics for the DE degree at Flinders. I was a guest lecturer there. I did consistent lecturing and marking, so kind of helped with, I have a good understanding of what DEs do, and being based in South Australia, I've been working with DEs for quite a few years now, actually out in the community.
Amazing. Thanks, Jade and Lisa. So we're really fortunate to have Jade and Lisa here tonight to talk about their experiences and to also give some feedback into our program. So please don't hesitate to send any questions through that Q&A chat that you may have. So what are we going to go through today? We're going to talk to you about who are Everyday Independents and what we do. So we're going to unpack what our role is at EI and a bit about our organisation. We're going to talk to you about the everyday way. And the everyday way is how we deliver supports at Everyday Independence. How do we actually change the game and support people to reach their full potential? I know for many of you, this part of the conversation might be quite obvious, but I know there's some people here who aren't actually developers. So we're going to talk a bit about what are developmental educators. We're also going to talk about the developmental educator role in interdisciplinary teams. And at Everyday Independence, we work heavily with other professionals and in a team-based environment. We're also going to talk to you about why Everyday Independence could be a great start to your career or a great place to continue your career as a DE. And we're also going to unpack our new graduate program, which has been purposely built for the DE role.
Ooh.
I'm now going to throw to Jade, I believe. Bit of tech.
Yeah,
go,
sure.
Jade.
That's all right. So Everyday Independence is a leading provider of NDIS funded disability support. We've got over 600 practitioners, including OTs, speech pathologists, physiotherapists. We've got teachers who work in a key worker role, mental health nurses, social workers, and excitingly, developmental educators, which we're hoping to grow. We've got 38 hubs in capital cities and regional areas across Australia. And we've got around 25 years of evidence-based, community, team-based experience. And we use a person-centered approach that increases independence and improves quality of life. So the everyday way is something that's really special and unique to Everyday Independence. So we use the social model of practice, which you're very likely to be familiar with, being trained in the disability field. And we use an interdisciplinary teams approach. So we look at a person's life from all different angles and are able to work really collaboratively and holistically to support a person to achieve their goals. We use a tool called the LEAD tool, which is EI developed, and it helps us with measuring outcomes and planning out therapy in a really cost-effective and impactful way. And we also use what we call habit coaches, which are otherwise known as allied health assistants, and they help with building routines, building skills in a cost-effective way. And we also use therapy sprints. So that's an evidence-informed approach where we use really targeted bursts of support. So we're not giving people therapy and all the time, every week. It's really targeted to support a person achieve what they really want to achieve.
So then we might actually talk about what actually are developmental educators. So some of you would know, and some of you, like Harley said, aren't DEs. So an important part for a DE is that they hold a bachelor and master's degree in disability studies or equivalent. And you are accredited and approved for membership with the Developmental Educators Australia, Inc., or the DEAI. Once you have that membership, you're then eligible to deliver services funded under the NDIS. So as a disability studies graduate, there are a ton of different career options that you can get into. So traditionally, DEs tended to work more in that service coordination space. So they might have been doing support coordination, working in aged care. You might have worked in the government where you could have done policy or community development or admin. You might have worked in employment-related activities, so helping people find and keep jobs, or employment officers. What we really want to highlight and what we think we can do differently at Everyday Independence is actually allow you to be a developmental educator working in disability services. So this will allow you to use your clinical skills to work as a DE and make difference in people's lives. You could also, under disability services, work as an early intervention practitioner, or DEs are quite often behavior support practitioners.
So one of the things that we're really proud of, and something that we've been working really hard over the last 12 months at Everyday Independence, is really advocating for developmental educators. We know that developmental educators have a really critical role in supporting people living with a disability to reach their potential and to live their best life. So we feel like at Everyday Independence, we have a critical role in bringing the developmental educator role into our teams. So we know the developmental educators' role is growing in the sector, and we know that the role has been predominant in South Australia, but it's growing all across the country. So we really want to be able to provide opportunities for this role to increase its scope and to increase its scale all across Australia. So Everyday Independence is working to build the knowledge of the sector and communities on what do actually DEs do. And we're also doing this through collaborating with multiple universities and supporting them to provide opportunities to their graduates and students. Something else we've also done that we're going to talk more about in the presentation is we also have a purpose-built training for developmental educators. So a training that supports developmental educators to come in and get a kickstart in their career.
That's me. So what is a developmental educator's role in our interdisciplinary teams? So as always, we're going to have the participant and their family at the center with this beautiful team of interdisciplinary support around the circle, with developmental educators being a part of that. So you guys are trained to look holistically at a person. You're highly trained in disability. You have a great understanding of neurodiversity, the social model. You understand intersectionality. You understand the policies and the frameworks within Australia. That's what your training's all been about. So you've got everything you need to excel in a team such as ours, to really lead that change for our participants. And you're really going to be knowing how you're going to deliver hands-on support to plan and coordinate services for our participants.
So why everyday independence, and why is coming to everyday independence potentially a really great opportunity for you as a developmental educator? So probably the number one thing is, at everyday independence, we are committed to achieving outcomes. We are really driven in providing supports that enable people to live their best life and support people in being able to go to school for the first time, be able to enter the workforce, be able to move out of home, to be able to have relationships. So we're really committed to actually making a difference for the people we support. We also note that we want to be able to support developmental educators in accelerating their careers. So at Everyday Independence, you'll come in, and the first component of our program is all about establishing the foundation. So supporting you to set up really strong foundations to your career and knowing where does a DE fit in terms of our organisation and what does support look like. But then over time, we want to enable you to have career opportunities and be able to progress your careers in a number of different areas, whether that's working across different ages and stages or working in specific clinical fields. We also work in a team-based approach, as we've already discussed. So we wrap a team around not just our participants, but we wrap a team around our practitioners. So it's a great opportunity for you to collaborate with OTs, speechies, physios, behaviour support practitioners. So you're learning together. So it's not just about providing great supports to participants, it's also about providing great supports to you as professionals. We also have competitive pay, benefits, and offer flexibility in work options. And we also have tools and resources that are unique to Everyday Independence that will support you in delivering high quality evidence-based practice. Let's jump into a case study.
So we thought we'd include some case studies so you could actually get a bit of an idea of what a developmental educator might do at EI. So if we look at this case study, we have 9-year-old Emily, who's getting ready to transition to a new school, and she wants to continue building friendships and improving her communication. So as the DE in this case, you would conduct a comprehensive assessment of Emily's developmental level and communication abilities and challenges. So you would use our lead tool to get a picture of all her different skills. You might do some formal assessments. You might also do some dynamic assessments of her in a variety of different environments, so you can get a picture of her skills everywhere she is to create a more comprehensive plan. Then you don't work in isolation. You're going to work with the team around Emily. So that's her family, her teachers. She might have a speechie involved. She might have an OT involved. So you're going to make sure that you pull everyone together and you have a really clear idea of what her current skills are, any gaps. You're then going to work with her and her team to actually give her the skills and create a transition plan that will allow her to successfully start making new friends and feel comfortable in her new classroom. You'll then work on actually implementing those strategies. So you don't just create a plan, but you actually bring that plan to life. And you'll support Emily as she transitions and the people around her to give her the ongoing skills to continue to develop.
Okay, so here's another case study with an adolescent, Sophia, who's 14 and been on a wait list for OT and speech pathology. Now, we know there's a shortage of OTs and speech pathologists, so somebody might be waiting on a wait list for a long time for an OT or a speechy, when a developmental educator can really get in and start doing a lot of that work that, that you're trained to do. So, a developmental educator might support Sophia to increase her confidence at school and develop new friendships by doing an assessment of the skills and abilities. They might look at some of the barriers that Sophia might be facing throughout transitioning through her school day. They might help Sophia understand more about neurodiversity and develop a positive identity. As an adolescent, we know that can be a really tricky time. So you might be helping provide resources and supporting the development of self-advocacy skills for Sophia. So there's lots you can really be doing. Oh, yes. So we have just about finished designing and making a purpose-built 12-month interdisciplinary practitioner graduate program. So what you already know as a developmental educator graduate is the social model principles that we've talked about, professional ethical behaviours, and some of the discipline-specific best practices. And what you still need to know is how to work in that interdisciplinary team, how to work in that social ecological model. We get a lot of people who graduate and say, gee, I wish I really had an additional 1 year to do like an internship and learn everything I need to know to be practice fit. And this is what we're hoping this will do. So, the result of that is that you're going to be successful. You're going to be a life-changing interdisciplinary practitioner. So a bit of the curriculum overview. We know that there's lots of different skills that you need to be successful in this sort of role. We know that the interdisciplinary curriculum is really important. So understanding a lot of those skills around what we do. So things like clinical reasoning, how to have courageous conversations, how to use the coach approach. But then we also know that you need to learn your discipline-specific skills. So that's why each discipline that comes to Everyday Independence have got their own designed curriculum. So you'll have one specifically designed for developmental educators to teach you what's in scope, what you can do, how you can work with all the other disciplines. Yeah, it's really fantastic.
Amazing. Thanks, Jade. So we're really excited by the introduction of the new graduate program. We've worked really hard over the last 12 months to build it out, and have been in collaboration with a number of different people and developmental educators and other professions to support with that program and being fit for purpose. But I just want to go through what are some of the other benefits of joining Everyday Independence. So I'm going to leave that on the screen so you can have a look. Feel free to ask any questions. One of the things we have introduced, which we're really excited about, is a referral bonus. And this is an incentive that we've implemented because we know that we can support people in having the best start to their careers when people start in a group with other practitioners or other developmental educators, and they have the opportunity to collaborate and work alongside more of your peers. So if you are sitting there and you're considering a role with Everyday Independence and you're successful, and you refer a friend or a peer who is also successful, you'll be eligible for a financial incentive to say thank you for referring a peer to the program. If you're sitting there and you're thinking about applying and you've got friends thinking about applying for Everyday Independence, please reach out to us together, because if you all apply together, there's also an opportunity to have a group incentive. So it's a new program. We're launching this as part of our Developmental Educator rollout across Australia. So if you are interested in that referral bonus or have more questions, or you're sitting there with a group and multiple of you are interested, then please do not hesitate to reach out. If you would like to apply or you'd like to have some more information about our program, please jump on and click this link. You'll be able to go through and find out more about the role of developmental educators at Everyday Independence. Something that's also really, really exciting and it's hot off the press, we are just about to, if not, it hasn't been already, roll out our graduate program component of our website, which will go through all the parts of the graduate program, all the specifics, the curriculum, the support you'd receive at Everyday Independence. So that will all be available either today or tomorrow, which is really exciting. I'd really encourage you, if you do have questions, to please ask away. We're really, really fortunate to have Jade and Lisa on the panel who have been working in this program, but have also worked in the disability sector. It feels like probably forever team. But if you do have any specific questions that are related to a career at Everyday Independence that you might have, please take the email that is now on the screen. But otherwise, we'll jump into some questions. So one of the questions from Melanie is who helps to organize who does what in the therapy team? Does anyone have a go at answering that question?
There was more to it. I know the DE has some crossover with key worker, BT and OT.
BT and OT.
I can answer that if we like. I think so essentially at our organisation, all our teams work collaboratively together. So the program has multiple components to it. However, if you're working in the youth and adult space, typically all our teams have what we call a primary practitioner. So there is someone who is leading the team and guiding the team and bringing the team together to making sure it's working as one unit. That doesn't have to be the DE. That could be anybody in the interdisciplinary team. We also have the early childhood model for young kids, which is our key worker model. And that is an opportunity for the DE to actually work as a key worker and to provide supports. In that model, the key worker would be the person bringing people in and out when it's required.
We're getting lots of questions about placements.
I can answer those ones if you like as well, Jade.
I'm going to go down the bottom. When can we start the graduate program? From Erica. I'm on the last semester of Master of Autism, one elective and one workplace remaining for the semester. Do I have to finish work placement or do I finish placement in Everyday Independence?
It's a great question. So our graduate program starts at the commencement of next year. So it starts in Jan and Feb. So that's when the program will kick off. If you don't finish your course by Jan and Feb and you're still interested in applying, that's completely okay. You might just start out of cycle and you might just do a bit of a catch up of some of the graduate components that you've missed. In terms of if you can do your last placement at Everyday Independence, that is definitely an opportunity. However, you can't get a graduate job with Everyday Independence and then do your last placement. So we do have placement opportunities available, but you can't be successful in a job and then do a placement with us. But if you are interested in doing a placement with us, then please do not hesitate to reach out. Please contact the careers email on the page and we can work with you around potential options if it's suitable in that local area.
I would say still apply though.
Definitely still apply.
Still
100%
apply.
still apply. Sorry.
Do you have roles for allied health assistants if you're studying? Absolutely. We do. In the 4th year of Developmental Educator. Yes, we have quite a few students. That's actually the most popular thing is for students to be in allied health assistant roles. Next question from Rachel. Do you support students completing the Masters of Autism for placement in the Geelong area, finding it challenging to find someone who will take on DEs? I think, again, that's a yes, like we're open to that. Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like most unis have somebody who organises all of that for them. But Lisa, with the DEs, can you just do it yourself?
No, so with the DEs, pretty much all their placements, they have to find themselves. So yeah, it does make it a lot more challenging. I guess the benefit is it doesn't have to be supervised by a DE. So it can be supervised by a speechy or an OT. I know I'm having conversations with some DEs at the moment about placements in a few different locations. So like Carly said, definitely reach out. We're more than happy to try to work with you. And yeah, I guess we do have an idea of what the requirements of your placements are. So yes, definitely reach out and we can try to figure something out.
Mm.
In terms of specifically to the Geelong area, again, we are actually supporting some people doing their placements. So if you are interested, please, I'd probably encourage you to reach out ASAP because we are supporting multiple people.
Is the graduate program compulsory? I think if you're already a DE practicing, then no, right? Yeah. Unless you're a graduate.
Yeah, spot on, Jade. So if you're a graduate, if you want to do it and you're already a DE, you can. So you can opt in. But if you aren't a new graduate, then you don't have to go through the graduate program.
Then there are a couple of questions about the offer positions for us to become behavior support practitioners, or do you do it while they're finishing their DE degrees?
So in terms of there is the opportunity for people to become behaviour support practitioners with everyday independence while they're doing their DE degrees and qualifications. However, you still have to have a qualification that makes you eligible for that role at everyday independence. So if you have a qualification in nursing or you have a background in disability or you've done an alternative degree and you'd like to be considered for a behaviour support role while you're completing your studies, then please jump on the website and have a look for behaviour support practitioner openings, or again, send an email through to careers. But there is an opportunity if you have a relevant background that enables you to be eligible for the behaviour support role.
Did you want your role state a minimum of 12 months experience?
Yeah, that shouldn't say that. So that's a problem. If this is so that would typically be the case if you're not a new graduate, you'd be able to go into our other pathway. But for our new graduate program, you don't have to have any experience. You just have to be qualified. Do participants pay to access each service? Do they pay for speech OTDE? Or do they pay for one therapy and then staff discuss the client as part of their clinical supervision?
I can answer that.
Go, Jade.
Yes, they do pay, but it's very planned and coordinated, which is kind of the point, because then they get the best of everything, exactly what they need in a very planned out way, and aren't running around accessing different providers from here, there, and everywhere. It's all in-house. And what happens is the primary practitioner, which Harley spoke about, will, do all those main assessments, coordinate the team, and then they'll sit down together and say, okay, look, we're going to do a speech burst here. We're going to do an OT burst here. The DE is going to be juggling XYZ in the background, but it's very cohesive so that the participant isn't going to be overspending. It's completely planned to their budget.
Perfect. Well, there's one question in the chat I'm going to ask you both. Can you assist DEs in becoming behaviour support practitioners?
Yes.
There you go. Yes.
Yes, definitely. If that's an area you would like to get into, then yes, it would just kind of be going down the behavior support practitioner pathway, as opposed to kind of looking more at that clinical pathway or the therapeutic pathway.
And if you're a new graduate coming into the program, we'd really encourage you to do the program first before you start looking at those other options. So 100% what Lisa said, opportunities to explore different career options. If you're a graduate, we would encourage you to follow the program through. I can answer this one just because it's a placement related question. Do you support students completing the Master of Autism for Placement related question? Do you support students completing the Master of Autism for Placement in the Illawarra Wollongong area in New South Wales? It's a good question. It's probably one that just needs to be emailed through to the careers line so we can review who we have available in that area to talk about if it's a specific option. And what's the difference between an OT and a DE? Oh, that's such a great question. I think that's what I really like about the DE role. The DE role has a number of components in it which potentially overlap with a number of other disciplines. What I love about the DE role, though, is that it is really targeted towards delivering services in the disability sector and targeted towards providing changing the environment and creating an inclusive Australia. Probably the key difference between the DE role and OT is OTs typically have more background in clinical expertise and human function. So OTs have a really critical role in being able to map and match what is the capability of that person against the specific environment. So OTs typically look a lot more of what the person's function and capacity is, where the DE role overlaps with a number of disciplines because you're often looking at the environment and how it can become more inclusive.
And can I just add to that from like a practical standpoint, Harley? Because that's like a theoretical answer, but when you're actually working with your whole team, your Ds, your OTs, your speechies, everybody, often it just turns into a conversation, and it depends on people's skills, people's interests, different trainings they've done, that you might actually see as a DE, you've done a lot of extra training in that sensory regulation, emotional regulation side of things, while your OT actually hasn't. So in this case, it makes much more sense for your DE to be the one who's providing that support, whereas another time it might be the complete opposite.
And I'll probably just add to that as well, because that's such a good point. When we work as a team, so Jade, Lisa, and I worked as a therapy team together, often all our roles will overlap. So it's really around how we map that out and we plan and we determine who's actually going to carry out a specific activity. It doesn't necessarily need to be one person because of that discipline. I think this is based on the behaviour support question, but what would be considered as relevant background? Is this referring to qualifications or work experience? It's a really good question. If you check out our website and go onto our behaviour support practitioner roles, you'll be able to see exactly the specific roles that we would consider or the relevant experience attached with that. What are some of your PD opportunities? Are they all in-house or can you choose?
So there's actually a mix to that. So as part of the graduate program, you get a ton, I guess, of PD in that first year that's in-house. However, you do also have access to a budget to access external training, because we know we can't offer everything someone might want. But so you do have access to that. But I've got to say, coming into EI, I've worked at a fair few different organizations. We probably have one of the best banks of internal trainings I've ever seen. There's a lot of training that's recorded. So it's almost impossible to find a topic that there isn't something that you can at least have a look at to see, oh yeah, I really am interested. I want to pursue using my budget to access more training on that externally.
Will you be running your graduate program annually, starting at the beginning of each year?
Yes.
Hopefully it works really well this year and we can continue it on. So the more DEs we have coming on board, the more successful it's likely to be, which is going to support us in continuing to roll it out.
And I think, I was just going to say, and I think that's something, I guess, exciting about coming on for this year, is that because this is something new, it's also a chance to kind of build it out into what it can become. So yeah, get that feedback and help support future DEs as well.
If you are studying DE and opt for habit coach or behavior support practitioner, is 12 months experience still required? Interested to know more about how to get involved while finishing my degree. So I'll have a go at answering that question. So you can definitely apply to a habit coach role or a behavior support practitioner role if you meet the relevant requirements and you've had that it doesn't have to be 12 months experience. You just have to meet the relevant requirements. You don't have to have 12 months experience in the DE space if you're a qualified DE to commence in the graduate program. And you can get more exposure and opportunities through joining as a habit coach or potentially a behavior support practitioner pending that previous degree. I have over 3 years working experience in an SLSO position, supporting students with a variety of behaviour issues. If I'm successful in behaviour support practitioner, does previous experience count? Again, it probably depends if you're talking about the DE role or the behaviour support practitioner role. For the behaviour support practitioner role, we definitely consider previous experience, but we also consider the current qualifications that you would hold that enable you to actually carry out that position. If you are a DE and you're a qualified DE and you want to join the graduate program, again, you don't have to have any previous experience. The program will support you with that.
There's a physio there.
Yeah.
You could also work as a physio.
As an overseas physiotherapist working as an allied health assistant in Sydney for 2 years, completed the Master of Disability Studies this year. Should I need to register to become a DE before I apply for the new graduate DE program?
So something that we see a lot of is people applying for the new graduate program, but they haven't actually gone through the process of becoming a developmental educator yet. It's probably just important to note that to commence in the program, you actually have to be a developmental educator. So I'd suggest that you do that as early as possible.
I think there's some questions in the chat as opposed to the Q&A. So are Ds required to have extra training or qualifications in areas like emotional regulation or sensory processing in order to provide support in these areas? And then if you do have that, does EE offer professional development opportunities for those?
Do you want to answer that one, Jade?
Sorry, I just realized there was chats in other areas.
Yeah, that's what I opened.
And I've also been answering some quick ones in the Q&A.
I can answer that one seeing as I read it out loud. So I guess we don't want anyone to provide a therapeutic service that they're not comfortable or familiar with or is going out of scope. So that is why, as part of the graduate program, there is a strong clinical supervision component. And that kind of helps to make sure your clinical reasoning is on track. We're identifying if there are areas for your participants that you need to access some additional training for. And if that in that case, then it's either there is potentially internal training you can access, or like I spoke about before, there is you do have a PD budget that you can use to access external training.
The other question on the bottom of that as well is, do you have any clients who require services from a DE? Just wanted to know how valuable the DE role is. What an awesome question. So the DE role is quite new to Everyday Independence. However, we have in areas where we've started this program, when we have opened it up, people have been coming and requesting for services. It really requires us to be able to work with the community to know the value of the developmental educator role, which is something that EI has been really committed and has been working on doing. So it depends on the location, but typically, yes, once we go out to the community and we talk about the role, there are people who want the developmental educator service.
And I think it's important to know that we're not marketing a DE as a substitute for OT or speechy. You have your own relevant qualifications that offer a really targeted service. So it's not a replacement ever. We actually view DEs, you are your own separate therapist that has your own skills and lens to look at participants as well.
And just to build on from that as well, it's such a good point, because often, a lot of the time, we don't even market the types of services we offer. So if we think about why someone would come to Everyday Independence, we want people to come to Everyday Independence because we want to achieve a specific outcome. And so someone might be moving out of home, for example. So we want to bring in the right supports to support them in moving out of home. So we might bring in a developmental educator, but the person didn't actually come for a developmental educator. They come to us to achieve an outcome.
We've just got a few more questions around clients, caseloads, etc. And I was just thinking it might be easier just to explain that in general terms, what our new graduates get. In terms of clinical supervision, it's a lot. So as a new graduate, you get an hour a week with your dedicated mentor. And then after 6 months, it's half an hour a week. But it looks, you get a real mixture of one-to-one as well as some peer group learning together, which a lot of people find very, very valuable. So you get a lot of that really focused support for you. But then there's also quite a number of other supports new graduates and all therapists can access, which is everyday therapy mentoring, where you can drop in, ask a question if you need to pick an OT's brain or a speech's brain. They're online a few times a week for you to just jump on and ask. We also have communities of practice, which is a monthly topic focused on different topics. A lot of people access the previous recordings of those if they see a topic that they've liked. Am I missing one thing? The new graduate program is really...
Yeah, probably just we have a new, like the peer support program.
Yeah.
As well, Jade. So we have a new program which you will, it's a program we are trained in. So it's where you will collaborate and engage in mentoring with your peers. So it's a new program which is fast, which Everyday Independence is really leading. It's an opportunity to collaborate and learn from each other.
And I think that other question was just around like caseload for a new graduate, which Lisa, you might, being a team leader, those numbers are probably quicker in your head than mine.
So there is like a stepped up caseload. So you're not expected to go out and kind of see 3 participants a day right off the bat. It is a slow, gradual increase over kind of your first 4 to 5 weeks at EI. And I guess a part of that is also working closely with your team leader, because we want to make sure you're feeling supported. So we've definitely, as a team leader, I've definitely had scenarios where people have either wanted to pick up participants a bit more quickly, or others where they've got some real complexities. So we've kind of slowed it down a little bit. So it is individualized while we do have a stepped increase.
Yeah.
What does a typical day look like?
Yes, exactly that.
The same thing. It looks like it. That's exactly what it is. It's a so a day could look different. Just a reminder, we are a community-based service. So we might be going out to see someone in school. It might be going out to someone's home. It could be going out to really anywhere where someone wants to or is spending their time. But probably just something to note is there's an opportunity, also the opportunity to write reports and things like that, where you might do that at home, you might do that at work. There's lots of different opportunities. So we're out in the community, but there is also time to actually catch up and do that stuff.
Yeah, I might give an example of my day today because I had a clinical day today. So my first appointment was out at a school. I was in a special class working on using some AAC and supporting the SSOs to help my participant engage in some different learning activities. And then we had to run on the basketball court in 32-degree heat, and they kept yelling at me to run faster. So then I went into the hub for a couple of hours. I had a report to write. I had an OT that I caught up with to have a case discussion about our participant. Then I went on a home visit where I spent the first part of my session coaching the parent with some video feedback, and then worked with the parent and the child to establish, I guess, a better mealtime routine where the child wasn't throwing everything on the floor, but tried to actually eat some of them. And then I went home and checked my emails and kind of finished up for the day. Our case notes are written ideally within the session, so that it's not additional time on top of that. And any follow-up, I guess, is kind of done with the participant or their carers or guardians at that time. So as much as possible, you're including them in everything they do. But yes, that would be my day.
That would be a typical day. Like that's that's probably just standard. Jade, I can see you're replying to some questions in the chat, but
Sorry, they're coming hard and fast, which is awesome.
Which is perfect. Someone just said they expressed interest in working in EI and they have an interview. Just to note, we might open up different jobs and roles at different places, but as long as you apply for one position, you can then speak with the person who's doing the interview or the person who organizes the interview to discuss the best location. And they will talk to you about the options available. So you don't need to reapply. You don't need to apply for an individual job location. If you're applying for one role, we will work with you to make sure it's the right location.
And just to clarify, yes, all services are mobile. So community, home, school, sessions at libraries, at the park. But no, we don't actually have sessions in our office, unless you're doing a telehealth session and you're sitting in the office with someone at their house. But we don't actually have participants come and see us in our office. We want to see them in their natural environments.
Sometimes we do, but only if it's very specific
rare
circumstances.
And it's part of our commitment to, we want to work with people where they spend their time. We want to work with the people who they spend most of their time with. So when we're in rooms, it's very challenging to do that. So to support us in actually being able to make changes to the environment, to make it a capable environment, we need to see what the environment is. We need to work with the people who are in that environment. So that's a key part of our practice. If there's any, I think that's all the questions. We'll probably leave it for another 10 seconds and then we will finish up.
Oh, another good one.
Yeah, it is a great point, Melanie. So the question is how much is there a push on KPI? And we know we're a business. Probably one thing to note is the NDIS is a fee-for-service model. So that means we do have to charge money for our time and charge for our services. So when we look at, we do have targets that we do need to work towards in KPIs. Probably one thing to note is we probably talk more about how many participants we're seeing during the day. So we try to talk not as much about hitting targets and numbers, but more about how can we support you in seeing a set number of participants during a week and having impact with participants. And we know that people actually do want to be successful in their roles. So typically when people are not hitting or they're struggling to hit, it's because there's a challenge with their calendar. So we'll then work with you to be able to map out your calendar, get clinical support in, whatever you need to be able to make that work.
Typical day. There's actually a couple of really good videos on YouTube with typical day stuff, although they're some of them are more targeted at different disciplines, but I think some of it would be similar, right? Like,
oh, you mean number of participants?
Is that
what? Melanie's just clarified what she meant.
Okay.
It's probably just what Lisa was saying before. We're probably not as it's probably not really focused on the number of participants that you're supporting. It's really around so you might be supporting more participants one week, less participants the next. It's really around how much service people required. So we want to, what Jade said before is what we do is when a participant comes in, we map out a plan and we then schedule that plan into your calendar, or you schedule your plan into your calendar. What that means is that once you're full, typically we can't book in any more participants. So it's all about mapping out what therapy looks like and then putting it into your calendar. If people need or have a potentially might have several participants who require intensive support at one time. So during that period, you might support less participants. During another period where you're not doing as intensive support with participants, you might have more participants. And probably just to go on about that, sorry, I could talk about this all day, is just remember you're working in teams as well. So just because you're supporting a participant might mean that the whole team is also supporting that participant. So you might not see that participant for a couple of weeks, but the rest of the team is actually providing that active support. Well, thank you so much for all the questions. We really, really appreciate everyone jumping online. I think that might be one of the seminar where we've had the most questions come through. So thank you so much for asking questions and being interactive. We really appreciate it. If you have more questions, please don't hesitate to shoot them through to that careers email. We're more than happy to answer anything in the future. And huge thank you to Christina for organising, and Lisa and Jade for giving up part of their evening to contribute. It's much appreciated. And we hope everyone got some value from the session.